Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. And folks of the Democratic Party, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about, are things already lined up to be the repeat of 2016? But before we get started, Lupita, how are you doing? Lupita, I missed you last week.
I missed being here so much, but I'm back. I had pink eye, so, out of respect for everyone here, I did not want to infect any of the equipment or anything and get that out to anyone. So I decided to stay home, even though I really missed being here.
Well, you know what? It was great because you taught me something I didn't quite know. You said, "Oh, it's very contagious." So I'm glad that
there are many little conspiracies about how you get pink eye. But a lot of it has to do with getting in contact with the bacteria and then touching your face. Simple as touching your face, touching something that someone with pink eye has already touched.
Didn't know it was that
The more you know.
The more you know. That's why, folks, you come to KPFT. But anyhow, we are going to have a great show for you today. The title of the program today is Joe Biden's Hillary. Let me get it right. Because I created a word here, okay? It goes like this. Joe Biden's Hillary-fication borders on insanity, hard to comprehend by many. And the subtitle of the show today is, I think it is well-meaning insanity by some, but an outright calculation by the Plutocracy to manufacture a near-clear path for Joe Biden, and it must be resisted. You know what? It's funny, Lupita. I use that word plutocracy a whole lot, right?
Yep.
And, this woman the other day looked at me and she said, Egberto, we like what you're talking about, but you always use that word plutocracy. And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, please tell me, what word do I use? That's what it is. And we have to kind of get that inculcated in people's minds so that they can understand that thing that has the boot on our neck, that thing that's not making what the opportunities that Lupita and my daughter and other folks are going to have, they have the boot at our necks. And you know what? That is our aim at Politics Done Right. Our aim at KPFT is to ensure that boot is removed from people's head. But anyhow, folks, look, the powers that be seem to have decided that Joe Biden is the anointed one. And it does not take much for the machinery to get in gear. I do not even think it was necessary for a memo to go out. Why? There is an unspoken rule that one could not take to court, but one can feel. And man, I am feeling it now. Don't you? The wonderful thing is that in America, we still have a semblance of democracy that can only be subdued but not eliminated yet. Progressives, you better be out beating the pavements and knocking on doors. We do not have the money, but we have the goods, the legs, the hands, the people to do the job and get the job done. So look. Let me first be very frank about this. This isn't an anti-Biden piece. This isn't an anti-Biden flow or anything like that. Biden isn't the candidate that I think would represent us best. But what I don't want to occur, and what none of us should want to occur, is an anointing of a candidate the way we had an anointed in 2016 and constantly that way, because it does two things. It creates animosity in the base because it seemed to people that the election wasn't fair or it was rigged. And the second thing is the best person just doesn't get a chance to rise to the top. And you'll see in the blog of the week, we're going to discuss certain things about Biden that needs to be explored. And you know what? Let me tell you something. And to be frank with all my Democratic listeners right now, personally, Egberto, not the host, I would have absolutely, if Joe Biden goes through the process and Democrats decide that Joe Biden is a representative of the Democratic Party, I will have absolutely no problem voting for El Señor Biden. But, of course, I'll be fighting him like hell whenever he allows the plutocracy to take over, like the bank cards and all that kind of stuff. I will be fighting him head and toe.
There goes that word again.
Oh, boy. Lupita, you got me. But I'm telling you, folks, I'd have no problem there, but we have to allow the process to go through. So my blog of the week, when I'm talking about it, it is not going. I will be saying nothing negative about anybody who's going out there to campaign. Not even, well, I won't. What I will be doing is exploring and asking folks to just be honest. But anyhow, before I get to the program, I want to remind all our listeners that KPFT is a bastion of intelligent voices and programs. As a political activist myself, my favorites are Think Wing Radio with
Mike Koenig on Mondays at 3 p.m.
Absolutamente so. And we have Open Journal with
Dwayne Bradley and crew on Mondays at 6 p.m.
And we have Jazz Latino, Afro-Cuban Latin Jazz at its very best, hosted by
Juan Flores and myself on Tuesdays at noon.
And you know what? Since you got on hosting with Juan Flores, I guarantee you that his numbers went up.
Well, actually, someone even called today to congratulate me on almost graduating. So
they
did.
You see, there you go. Yeah. So that means, you see, Juan. So Juan, if you're listening, Juan, you better make sure Lupita stays. If you notice, when Lupita came to the place here, I'm like, no, Lupita is politics done right now too, man. Lupita is politics done right. Anyhow, the other one, Asian Radio, a weekly program featuring an eclectic mix of Asian underground, Bagra, Bollywood, funk, indie, Rai, where ancient sounds meet future beats. And who is that and when again?
That's Tuesday, 4 to 6 p.m.
Absolutely. And then we have Really But Not Really, a hip-hop and R&B parody show on
Wednesday at 10 p.m. by Rosemount.
Absolutely so. But now, folks, check out our full schedule at kpft.org, where you can find programming from music to the politics to medicine to the eclectic. KPFT is a listener-supported public community radio station. So please, 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 please remember that if you like what you hear, visit kpft.org and ensure we remain a strong, viable community radio station that provides news, programming, and information not influenced by whom, Lupita?
The corporatocracy.
There we go, folks. We are going to have a great show. Please remember to call in. The telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Folks, I want to talk about something else real quickly. Next, later on this week, I think it starts on Thursday, we're going to be going into Fund Drive, okay? Now, when Politics Done Right comes on next Tuesday and the next Tuesday during all these Tuesdays during the Fund Drive, I don't want you guys to do something that a lot of times you do, and that is, it's KPFT's in Fund Drive, so we're not going to be listening to Politics Done Right, or we're not going to. I don't want to hear that, my dear brothers. We're going to be covering issues, and we don't have the time to not be engaged with what's going on. So here's my commitment to you. During the Fund Drive, I will prepare a show in a Fund Drive manner that concentrates on the show and then tries to, and of course, ask you to go ahead and make your pledges, your commitments, etc. But we are going to be having shows. So I know you know that the Fund Drive is coming along here at KPFT next week or later this week, I believe. Stick with us. I implore you. I implore you to do it. Many of us are going to try to have those programs and not just be please call 713-526-5738 and kind of, I'm going to do that. But what I'm going to do as well is give you a program interspace with asking you to support the station. It is imperative that we hear from you to support the station. It is imperative to keep this 100,000 watt transmitter alive. We are the only progressive station left in this entire section of the state. And as you guys know, Texas is a huge state. We need it. And I am asking you so kindly, stick with us during our fund drive. Talk to your friends. Ask them to stick with the fund drive. You know what is even better? If we get quite a bit during the fund drive, guess what's going to happen? It can be shorter, but we have to meet our goals. We have to meet our goals. So I need to talk a little bit more till my intro comes in because Lupita is on the phone right now. So I want to say one other thing before I get into the blog of the week. And that is this. This is a valuable asset. This is a valuable asset that many others would want. We need you to keep us here. But folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, and Chris and Scott, stay with me. I will be with you guys shortly. Okay, title of the blog of the week is The Hillary-fication of Joe Biden has already begun, and it's a bad thing, okay? I want all of my Democratic, true establishment Democratic listeners, I love you all. Democratic establishment, progressives, whatever you are, on the left side, listen to me. What I'm talking about is pragmatic, and let's keep this in mind. Okay, but anyhow, it goes like this. Too many of us have seen this game before, and it is self-defeating. The entire Democratic machine is a not so very subliminal machine, is anointing Joe Biden and as the preferential candidate to represent the Democratic Party against our corrupt president. I sometimes wonder why the Democratic establishment spends so much money on overpaid analysts. The reality is that when we win, it is in spite of the general advice. Joe Biden is supposed to be the guy that Donald Trump fears the most. It is yet another ruse. They want you to believe that he is feared. They want you to think, oh, we're so scared of Joe Biden. And if Joe Biden were to become the representative, I'm not going to talk about this on air. I'm not going to write about this on blogs. I won't but they will. And here's the reality. The operational research on Biden has already been done. It's complete. And the thing about it is, it isn't going to be an easy path at all. Anyhow, continuing. If Joe Biden were to make it through the primaries, Trump and his machine will slaughter him. There is already a plausible narrative that will ostensibly skim both black and women voters. Worse, when one looks at the 2018 election and where the new Democratic voters are emanating from, he does not fit the profile. The one saving grace is that history is not kind to the front runner in fairly unrigged Democratic primaries. 2016 was the exception. Unlike Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden continues to work with big dollar donors. FAIR reports the following. Biden has pledged that his 2020 campaign won't take in any direct donations from lobbyists. But on the first night of his official candidacy, Biden hit the suburbs of Philadelphia to attend 2,800 per person fundraisers at the home of David L. Cohen, the executive vice president and chief lobbying for Comcast. Comcast, one of the biggest lobbying spenders in Washington, also owns MSNBC, which has showered Biden with favorable coverage both before and since his announcement. FAIR goes on to point out how just like the right-wing media made light of Trump's female insensitivity problems, MSNBC is doing the same for Joe Biden. In March, and quote, in March, Nevada Lieutenant Gubernatorial candidate Lucy Flores, a woman that I met in Arizona at Netroots 2015, published an article in New York Magazine that described how Biden inappropriately kissed her at a campaign event. Biden has quite a long history of awkward and inappropriate touching, kissing, or groping of women and girls. Mika Brzezinski, co-host of MSNBC's Morning Joe, was one of the first to defend Biden. Brzezinski suggested that Flores allegedly was politically motivated, citing Flores as a huge Bernie person and asking, are we just supposed to take all that words and the fact she said she was violated at face value? Her guest later that day, former DCCC Chief of Staff Adrian Elrod and former CIA DOD Chief of Staff Jeremy Bash, seemed to agree that such Me Too accusations against Biden were meaningless. They were meaningless moments and merely baseless finger-pointing from Biden's political opponents. Brzezinski continued her defense of Biden the following day and later in the week on Morning Joe after another woman came forward with allegations of inappropriate behavior. Brzezinski said that the allegations were sad and that Biden is a nice guy and not a predator, she continued. This is ridiculous. The conversation has gotten out of control, and Democrats and those on the left who want to tweet me today and go nuts and get all woke. You're eating your young. You're eating those who can beat Trump. You're killing the very people who have been pushing women ahead, who've been fighting for equal pay, who have been doing everything they can to respect women in their lives. We're going to after Joe Biden for being affectionate to women of all ages and to men as well. It's ridiculous. That kind of defense drives me crazy. That kind of defense drives me crazy. Women and the women who are, well, we'll talk about that. I know a lot of you will talk about that with me when we get into the answering the phones, which is coming pretty shortly. And if anyone doubts the liberal media is all in with Biden, while he is indeed the front runner, defense of Biden as supposedly the only candidate with ability to beat Trump is frequently parroted by many corporate Democrats and by totally definitely well-meaning Republican Party figures, as well as MSNBC contributor Mike Bernicle recently re-upped this trope on the day of Biden's announcement through his credit. Axios Jim Vanderhill did push back on this narrative. On the same program, Joe Scarborough castigated Biden detractors, maintaining that they failed to understand the context of Biden's past support for harsh drug laws, opposition to school integration, and support for the Iraq War. He later added that it's easy for you to sit there behind your laptop drinking your soy lattes in 2019, judging. Sharpton chimed in with further attacks on so-called latte liberators and limousine liberals. But despite his folksiness, if there is anyone who serves the interests of financial giants who spend most of their time in limousines, it's Joe Biden. Since the late 1970s, Biden has been the chief defender of the Delaware-based credit card industry in Congress and played a crucial role in the passage of the 2005 bankruptcy law, which made it harder for Americans to wipe out and restructure unreasonable debts through Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Indeed, credit card company MBNA, formerly owned by Bank of America, was Biden's second largest donor throughout his Senate career. When Biden drafted the original version of the bankruptcy bill in 2000, he was strongly opposed by then Harvard Law professor Elizabeth Warren, who was integral in getting the Clinton administration to block its passage. Biden has also been a consistent supporter of further financial deregulation, such as the Graham-Bailey-Leach Act, which has been pointed to as a partial cause of the 2008 financial collapse, that along with Glass-Steagall, of course. Yet Biden's extremely checkered political history, where he was consistently on the wrong side of issues like women's rights, racial equality, financial regulation, drugs and criminal justice, surveillance and war, still doesn't seem to be enough for the media to deem him damaged goods. In fact, outlets like MSNBC still play up Biden as the most viable candidate, despite the fact that there are others with similar long tenures in politics who don't make Biden's same mistakes. Joe Biden, close quote, Joe Biden is a good man, in my opinion. He genuinely believes that his pragmatism and moderateness is good for the country. The plutocracy can live with that. The reality is that the status quo is now a clear and present danger to the middle class and the poor, and to millennials, and to Gen Zs, and to the younger Gen Xers. Too many continue to live abstracted from those who, with bad policies, affect immensely. For those impacted, a marginal step may not be worth it. So why vote? They may vie for a Trump re-election under the same premise many told me they did in the first place: to disrupt the elite. Unfortunately, while that is Trump's rhetoric, he has no intention of doing so. We need a candidate that will be boldly progressive, who does not fear to sell Americans what they already want and making it attainable for them. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. And I'm going to start with Chris. Come on in, Chris. Chris, you're on. Yes, Chris.
Yes, Egberto, what's that word again?
Plutocracy.
Okay, what's the slogan of your show? Without the support of the what?
Without the support of the oligarchy.
Or the corporatocracy?
Or the corporate. Oh, you're right, corporatocracy. Imagine I forgot my own words, and Lupita is looking at me saying, "Come on now, come on now."
I was
that
waiting for you to say
my point. That feeds it to my point. These synonyms, having so many synonyms, are an enemy of clear communication.
Oh man!
You're trying to highlight a problem. You also call them centrists, which empowers them.
Oh God!
We got to stick to one term, and I would say corporatist is probably the best one.
You know what is so good? Like I always say, I have such great listeners. You know what I mean? And you're right. It's going to take a while for me to kind of remember to try to centralize that word. You know what I mean? But I mean, you're so right.
We're spreading ourselves thin,
Chris, that is one of the most important parts of marketing, and you hit it on the nail. But I don't know if I like corporatocracy because there are so many people that work for corporate America, they may take it as a sly on themselves. You see what I'm saying? So
but how many people hate working for corporate America?
A lot of them hate it. But you know what? We need to kind of test that because I have to be very careful when we hit corporations in the manner in which we hit corporations because, again, people work for corporations and what happens then is the right spins your attack on the corporations proper as attack on their jobs, their livelihood. So I have to figure out how to.
That's true.
We have to find a good way to do it. But I appreciate that.
We need something that rolls off the tongue,
yes,
but also diminishes their power, not increases their power.
Brother Chris, you're absolutely right. What else you want to add, my brother?
If we nominate Joe Biden, we take one of our number one talking points against Trump off the table.
Tell me about it.
And it would be horrible. That would be Trump's hair.
Yes.
We can't make fun of Trump's hair without making fun of Joe Biden's hair.
Hey, look, you took me off.
I say that as a fellow bald man.
Okay, I'm a bald man too, but you just made me laugh like crazy from that one. I thought you were going to use something else, and you brought in the hair. Come on.
Yeah, come on. You got to be. We got to be honest with ourselves. We can't engage in cognitive dissonance about Joe Biden's hair.
Absolutely. So, anything else you have to add before I jump off to Scott? And folks,
you were talking about the analysts.
Yes.
Why even bother hiring these analysts?
Yes, they're always wrong.
They're so ineffectual. They couldn't win 2016, so they tried to put the blame on Russia and to save their careers. The reason why they hire these analysts is to protect themselves from criticism, because these analysts go on TV, they have media contacts. It's basically an extortion racket run by influence peddlers, a big network of influence peddlers that all want a piece of the donation.
I want to add some. Well, you just took my words out of my mouth. It's a racket, right? In other words, we every day in your mail you get all these emails that are asking you to give money to the DCC, the DSC, the SSC, and all these different organizations that are really not grassroots. Here we have KPFT that is really grassroots, and we have a hard time getting people to contribute like they would to a lot of these organizations that don't really work grassroots. Look, we have Politics Done Right that we go out there and we like folks support these programs. We need to be able to have folks who support those who are really out there pushing the message and informing people. But these guys, because they have some sort of a dominance, they take all the cash. And then you know what they do, Chris? And I'm coming to you next, Scott Dentori. You know what they do, Chris? They do the following. They go ahead and they take all this big cash and they pen. This analyst may get $10,000 for a month. This other analyst may get $15,000 for a month. And then you know what those analysts do, or the other folks do? They go ask for volunteers in poor neighborhoods. They go ask for volunteers in all these other neighborhoods to go out and hit the pavement free of charge, while these guys that sit down in their ivory towers give advice about how the people in these neighborhoods behave that they've never been in contact with. It's amazing. It's a racket, as you said. And that is where we have to go. Look, Chris, I am sure you are out there in the field. I am in the field. Whenever you see me over there at Netroots, or whenever you see me out there in the streets or talking to folks, or even at Starbucks, you see me engaging in the community and talking to hear what people on the ground are feeling, what people on the ground are sensing. Whether you're Trumpists or liberals or progressives, you're talking to people to see where it really happened. You have these guys that sit in an ivory tower who has a telephone dialer that calls people who may or may not answer the phone and say, oh, this is where the spirit of America is. No. So I'm going to tell the mass audience out there, start watching where you really put your dollars, because most of your dollars, even to some of these progressive organizations, are going into the pockets of rich elitist progressives who are sitting down in ivory towers, going on TV, telling you things that they really don't know. And that's why they fail most of the times.
In terms of keeping an eye on the dollar, that's the second point of why they hire the analysts, because the big donors are looking at who they're hiring. Hey, I know that guy. He's part of the network. He's in the in crowd. I'll give to him. It signals to those big donors, hey, in some way they cover their costs.
Right on, Chris. Thank you so kindly. Anything else to add before I go to Scott?
That's it.
Thank you, brother. You have a wonderful day, folks. We have open lines, 713-526-5738. Open lines, wide open, so you'll get to me rather quickly. Let's go to Senor Scott. Come on in, Scott.
Thank you. Well, I said recently on Facebook that a sharp line between socialism and capitalism is a myth.
Okay.
All real economies are mixed economies. Republicans thrive on this myth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a Republican buddy who naturally posted a comment, and he said that socialism and capitalism are as different as night and day, and anyone who doesn't think so is ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of went back and forth for a while, and finally I said, I would like to hear some comments from other people. I did get a few comments from others, but he did most of the posting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I think I want to spend the rest of this year trying to dispel this false dichotomy. You know, I heard the Donald say that the American people do not want socialism. He's using this myth.
Yes, he is. Now, let me. Did you finish, or do you want me to respond?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me first say something, and I want to say this in the nicest form possible, but at the same time, I want people to understand where I'm coming from. But first, I must say it this way. I am a free enterprise person. Everybody should be free to have their own businesses. They're free to work for whomever they want. As far as capitalism as defined the way we've defined it, it is a failure. And how do you know something is a failure? When it does not work. And if over the years, capitalism, and this is a mathematical equation, right? Monies and wealth and income has been going up the ladder without Obama being able to stop it, without Clinton being able to stop it, without Reagan being able to stop it. Because that is just the equation. The capitalist equation is an equation that will always move all your values up the ladder. eventually turning everyone else into indentured servitude. That's a fact. I'm not even willing to discuss that one other than to say the equations are there for you to examine. That said, you are absolutely right.
Okay, I'll grant. Over the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, incomes have become less equal, and I think it really got underway with the Reagan Revolution.
Yes.
And we've only had a few intermezzi with Democratic presidents. And
well, we had about the same, sir. I mean, we had 8 years of Obama. We had 8 years of Clinton. We had 8 years of Reagan. We had 4 years of
But
Bush.
Reagan was a big free market.
Yeah, and that's my point. So you're making my point. In other words, Reagan went with unfettered capitalism. We remove as many controls away from capitalism. You see, government was capitalism's savior. In other words, government took the aberration out of capitalism, and if you take the aberration out of capitalism, it's no longer capitalism. It is free enterprise. And that's all I'm saying. That's all. What I try to tell people is, anytime when Elizabeth Warren goes on TV and Elizabeth Warren says, "I am a capitalist, but I want to ensure that we do this. I want to ensure that we do that. I want to ensure that we do that." You're right. I agree with you, Elizabeth. We should do all of those things. And once you change all those pieces, you take away the building block of what really is capitalism.
Okay. The Australian writer Dennis Solomon has said that the gay rights movement has benefited from capitalism. That means, what he means is benefited from the private sector. And I certainly agree with that. I've been very much a part of that movement. We have a press, and it benefits. It lives a lot on advertising. It is very little subsidy from government. In fact, we have good reason to be suspicious of government.
Well, I don't. Let me just say one thing about that, and that is, first of all, the free enterprise isn't capitalism. Capitalism is taking your worth, your intellect, your worth, and your service, turning it into capitalizing it, making it into chunks of capital that can be bought and sold elsewhere while you do the work. You see, what happens, here's one of the things, and I'm coming to your next story, and folks, we have open lines, 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738. Here's what we do in this country. We lie to Americans. We lie to what capitalism really is. You know, we kind of shade it into all the different things. Capitalism, as I had economist Richard Wolff on my show, and he expressed he did the exact similarities between capitalism, slavery, and feudalism. And in effect, capitalism is antiseptic slavery. Okay, and what we have to understand is what happens with, when we capitalize something, you get a business, right? Let's look at Exxon, right? Exxon goes ahead and Exxon gets a whole lot of people working together, and they form that corporation. And that corporation then sells a whole lot of stocks to build itself up and pay and all of that. And that stock is owned by a whole bunch of people that are sitting at their pools or in their retirements or whatever, doing absolutely nothing, just having that capital there. But they are part owners of something. And what are they owners of? They're owners of your intellect. They're owners of your service. They're owners of all of that. They give you a piece of it, and what's left over all goes to them.
Well,
that is capitalism.
I understand that in most corporations, the controlling interest is just a small percent, maybe 1 or 2% of all the shares.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is. So what I'm saying is
the rest, the owners, they're all fragmented. They're just drawing dividends.
Yeah. We have to understand the concept before we can. Once you understand the concept, most people sit down and ask, why do we work so hard so that we have an executive class that guards the gates of the plutocrat class that goes ahead and takes advantage of the masses? That's how it works. I got to go, Scott, to the other.
Thank you.
Thank you so kindly for calling in, my friend. Okay, folks, we have open line 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. I have one more call on after this, and then we'll be free. So give us a call. All right, come on in, Tori.
Hey, how's it going? And happy May Day.
Happy May. Oh, wait, I thought May Day's tomorrow, right?
It is, but we celebrate tomorrow. There's like 2 events tomorrow. There's another big march on Saturday. So I called to tell you about these events to report on the May Day activities in Houston. Since nobody else talks about it.
Well, please go ahead and report on May Day. I thought you were going to also tell me, the stuff has already started in Venezuela as well. But anyway, tell me about May Day.
No, I'm not going to talk about Venezuela. But tomorrow, let's see, actually May 4th, it's the big May Day celebration. It meets at 1 o'clock, the corner of Renwick and Bel Air. Mm-hmm. And, it's more international. It's a lot of immigrants' rights groups, Alianza Latina International, Fight for 15, a bunch of political groups, Crescent, which is a Central American refugee organization, Houston Peace and Justice Center. And so anyway, that's from 1 to 3. They meet, and this has been going on for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And it's like almost every year they meet at this corner of Renwick and Bel Air, and they march for 1 mile to a big park. Let's see, what is that park called? Barnett Balin Park. Mm-hmm. But anyway, you can park at any of the little strip center parking lots like CC's Pizza near the corner of Renwick and Bel Air. And that's Saturday. Then there's another event that looks pretty good tomorrow on May Day, Build Bridges, Not Walls.
I like that.
This is hosted by FIEL, which is another Central American centric organization in Houston, FIEL. And they're going to meet at the Dunleavy Bridge over 59, 4502 Dunleavy. So bring your red and black flags or whatever you use to celebrate May Day with, posters, signs, bullhorns, noisemakers. They'll have a little demonstration over the bridge at from 4 to 7 p.m. tomorrow during drive time. So, do your little dance, make a little love on the bridge, do it in the road. And then, let's see, another event is happening at Guadalupe Plaza Park tomorrow, I believe at 6 p.m. And that's Dr. David Smith and the Ultra Commies. They're doing something over at Guadalupe Plaza, I believe at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And that's about it. And do you know who Lucy Parsons was?
No, who's she?
Because, she is the mother of May Day. And she was from Texas. She was born as a slave in Texas. And May Day would not be a holiday celebrated around the world if it was not for Lucy Gonzalez Parsons.
Well, look.
Very interesting story. And I can do it real quick. But she married a white man, a former Confederate soldier, Albert Parsons. They started registering black people, freed men, to vote during the Reconstruction phase in Texas after the Civil War. They got run out of Texas by the KKK. Albert Parsons was shot. Both of them went to Chicago and started a printing company, and they worked exclusively with the left, anarchists for the most part, which wound up getting them in a lot of trouble with the Chicago Police Department. Albert was rounded up and hanged for the May Day riots up in Chicago, the Haymarket riots, rather.
Okay.
And he wasn't even at the event, so he was a martyr with a bunch of other people, hung for no reason. And so she went to Europe, to Paris, lobbied these international organizations to make May Day a workers' holiday. The rest is history. A woman born as a slave in Texas.
Thank you for the history.
For May Day. People need to know that.
Thank you very much for the history. I did know that myself, so thank you so kind of my friend. You have a wonderful one, okay?
Have a good one. Bye.
Take care now. Okay, I'm coming to Hammy next, Hammy, but before I want to salute all our folks on Facebook Live. So welcome aboard, Senor Michael Rodnin. Welcome aboard, Jacob Santillane. Welcome aboard, Kathleen Marin Morgan. Welcome aboard, let's see, Daniel Lado, Stacy Contreras. And let's see. I have more, but I can't get to them. My screen just went blank. But anyhow, let's go. Hammy, come on in.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I just want to make a comment that the political system in this country, both Democrats and Republicans, they let you to participate as a consumer peasant. rather than a decision maker.
Explain.
They have a different audience, however. The Republican traditionally is that 1% top echelon and rich people, and the Democrats, their audience is, blacks and Spanish and disadvantaged and so forth. And they come and throw this bone in front of you or the red meat in front of you to get your vote. But once they get elected, they are dedicated to serve whoever provides the resources, which is the rich people.
Well, I mean,
And
I think if you've listened to my show before, you hear me talk about the left rail, the right rail, and the tracks. In other words, there's a left rail guarding the left flank, the right rail guarding the right flank, and the track going in the same direction, and that direction is moving to the right towards the people, exactly as you're saying right now. So I mean that is a but what I try to preach from my Politics Done Right show and others is. And one of the reasons you don't see me only concentrating on only talking to folks on the left, but also talking to folks on the right, is we have to get together and form that coalition that's going to say, hey, we can't allow them to allow these social issues to have us vote against our own interests, because the reality is most of us have the same interests. Let me give you a good example, right? The Trumpist, the voter, you made a
Trump is a distraction.
Right, exactly. But I want to make a comment. I want to sort of kind of correct you on one issue. You said the Democratic Party is a party of the disadvantaged and the Republican Party is a party of the rich. That may be how they sell it, but that's not true, because most of the Republican voters are poor. Most of the Republican voters are people that are, in fact, if you look at the Democratic Party in many instances, the progressives do financially better. But that's not the issue, right? The issue is perception. And the perception is that the Republican Party is a party of the rich, and people like to be around what they perceive to be their future, richness and wealth, and getting wealthy, etc. And the association of the Democratic Party with, let's say, black folk or Latinos or all the others give the semblance of it being less than for another group. So I think what I try to do in some of my narratives, right, is first of all, I have a thing that right now, a lot of folks that are saying they are or rather, Trump is trying to put out a narrative and others that the great person that is aggrieved right now is or the white persons or a white man or whatever. And what I try to tell folks right now is, please remember one thing that is very important, and that is you cannot lose something you've never had. You had the semblance of having, but you never had it. And that is what our system does. And you can respond to that if you want to, Hammy.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. But what I'm trying to say is, I saw you talking about
Biden
and so forth. Biden is a centrist.
Yes.
He's part of the old oligarchy.
Yes.
But you really need to start listening to people like Bernie Sanders.
I'm losing you. Please hold the mic to the. I'm kind of losing you, my friend.
Oh, okay, I was going to say that I believe candidates like Bernie Sanders are the one who truly talks about the economic opportunity for everybody. What he's saying is basically it should be an open market. You can make as much as money you can, but after a certain point, it takes a logarithm graph.
Of course.
Let's say from $1 to $10 million, you have a tax bracket of 20, 25%, whatever it is. But once it gets to 50, 60, 70 million, then it goes to 95%. That means you're entitled to make as much as you want. But once you get to that plateau, 95% of it, 99% of it, even 100% of it go back to the good system. And then that's a cap on the top. Cap in the bottom is a roof over your head, your belly should be full. There is no reason for anybody to be hungry in 24th century. And your kids should have the same educational opportunity as the kid living in River Oaks and Memorial. Now,
and that is possible. That is very possible, Hammy. Here's the issue: we have to first educate people into that thought process. When you hear me, and I'm hoping that I've started that when I tell people things like, the mathematical equation that governs capitalism says that all the money moves forward in the direction towards those who have capital. Okay? That is why I make it a mathematical equation, to let folks know there's nothing that we can do to stop the process of the designed economic system to do what it's going to do. It gets a little technical there. The second point.
There's nothing wrong with the capitalism.
Sir, let me finish. Let me finish.
How many breakfasts can you eat? How many...
Sir,
how many houses do you need?
That's my point.
$50, $60 million will secure you,
Hamley,
your family,
Hamley,
your kids,
we got the point.
Generation, your grandchildren.
Hammy, we got the point. And as I said before, we got the point. Here's an important issue. Once you put these structures in, it isn't capitalism, it is free enterprise, okay? And that is
whatever you want to call it.
I understand that. And what I'm trying to say, my friend, is, but let's make sure and get the theory right. What you're saying, that whole layout that you make with the logarithmic scale, the problem is you can't go outside of your house or your factory and talk to the person who's digging a hole in the street and talk about logarithms and that kind of stuff. So you have to be able to express that in a form that they understand why it has to be that way. Anything else you have to add before we go, Hama?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so kindly. You have a wonderful day, folks. Okay, we have lines open, 713-526-5738. I have one more call with MOD, so you will get on right after MOD. MOD, come on in.
Hello.
You're here, MOD.
Yeah. Woo, I made it.
You made it.
The Hummy's point at the very end there sounds sort of like the 17 principles that Pope Francis presented to the United Nations about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The first 10 were sort of like utopia, like every child should have a roof, access to medicine. Everyone should have a job. I don't know if do you know that speech he gave to the United Nations I'm talking about?
Yes, I sure do.
Roberto?
Yes, I sure do.
Okay, those first 10 principles were utopia, like obvious stuff, right?
Yes.
The final 7 were mandates, like 2.8 gallons of water a day or government housing. Those last 7 are realities. Okay, so anyway, that's what I think about when I hear people talk about that. It sort of sounds, but hey, we all talk about all those capitalism, right? With Ronald Reagan, you know what school of economics he was using, though, right?
Oh yeah, Chicago boys.
Yeah, Milton Friedman, South Chicago.
Yeah.
And yeah, he brought that, and now we're past that thing. I think that would be the blame for us to render capitalism with this new echelon I'm trying to share with you in a friendly manner. But before I do that, can I ask you a question? Do you know who James Clapper is?
Hold 1 second, real quick. Folks, after MOD, the lines are completely free, 713-526-5738. Don't wait till at the end with the flood, so please come on in and give a call now, 713-526-5738. After I'm done with MOD, we have no other calls on, so you'll get on right away. Go ahead, MOD. Yes, I know who James Clapper is.
All right. So he worked in this body called INT. They're out of San Antonio. They're really actually 30 years ago from Virginia, but they started, what's called geoimagery for our country's government and Google, people like that. Anyway, Clapper's application was used, Alberto, in last year's completion of China's cybersecurity framework. It's called Identity Without Borders.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about how you go around China and people could basically have what's called social credits?
Yes.
Okay, that's a full spectrum surveillance framework that's now implemented, and it's done, right? We're not disagreeing on that, right?
Right. Go ahead.
Okay, So here in the States, that application came from us. Accenture deployed it in China, and Canada's doing it right now also. The point I'm getting up to, Berto, is it won't. I don't think. Well, I know it won't matter. In another 2 to 4 years, who's elected here in this state, because that framework that I'm describing has been rolled out in other countries. Like here, we're doing it next year. It's called TSA. They're saying they're going to use facial recognition.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So all the stuff I'm describing to you are attributes of what's called technocracy. And for your listeners, and I'm not going to challenge you or say things to make you mad. I'm just going to say, if your listeners are interested in where I'm going with this, look up technocracy.news. And that
First of all, I'm coming to you next, Johnny. MOD, you don't ever make me mad. I don't get mad on these shows. Secondly, please just tell me what you're wanting to say.
Okay, so what I'm getting to is it won't matter who's the next elected official, because the framework that we're deploying globally, as I hear on here on this station, Gordon and Joe talk about, they went to D.C. 2 weeks ago, and they said in 2 to 4 years, we won't have to worry about representing, people come across the board, because they'll be using facial and retina identification recognition. So I'm saying it'd be here pretty soon, and that's called complete technocracy. It won't matter who the president is.
Okay, you know what? I don't have any doubt that you're right on that one, because it's already here.
Okay, and then we'll finish with this.
Quickly.
Now, guess how they're going to do it, Berto?
Yes.
So sustainable development's been around for a while, and it's coming in as new echelons. And I think, I can go with that then. People will go for the utopia, which is, the easy. They want everyone to have water, right? But when they agree to that 2030 sustainable development that everyone's thinking of, that your last caller sort of looped around with, it's coming. And it won't matter who the executive or congressional representatives are going to be. It's going to be totalitarian.
Okay.
So, for your entertainment.
Thank you very much, MOD. You have a good one, brother. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Okay, Johnny, come on in. And after Johnny, we could take another call. So 713-526-5738. You'll be on right after Johnny. Talk to me, Johnny. Talk to me.
Nice, intelligent debate and a civil conversation, my friend.
Yes, sir. Talk to me.
In the 80s, it's not like to me, you and me about the same age. We went to college.
Yes, sir.
And, of course, in college, I'm a moderate Republican.
I know.
And as a person who was in a government class,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell, especially college, would tell you how the people think of the future.
Mm-hmm.
The people on the left used to call me a Nazi, some of the things I brought. The people on the right, the far right, used to call me a socialist for the things I talked about.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to talk either side.
Right.
It really is. It's just because the other side, I tell them, we're going to do something about wages. They're like, what about it? And this was in the 1980s. I said, hey, our pay goes up 3%. Our standard of living cost goes up 5%.
Mm-hmm.
I said, do the freaking math.
Right.
I said, we're going to get in trouble. And it just, and of course, I did admit in the 80s, I didn't want the immigration to be done. That's where the left got all mad at me, because I said, we need to do something about closing out the immigration and then vest people in. I'm not saying throwing people out. I'm just saying, people who should be in the green card or visa, work visa, whatever, to keep a tab on them.
Okay.
So unfortunately, and I do admit I grew up being a Reagan
Democrat,
admiring Reagan,
mm-hmm.
and then of course I did a little bit more deal about him, and I do admit I'm not exactly crazy about him, because the fact that for that tax cuts, he did close down a lot of mental hospitals, mm-hmm. and a lot of vet hospitals,
mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, and I think one of that deal creates a lot of homeless people.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth of the matter is, we are, we like to call ourselves a very nice country, but when we look at how we treat people that don't have, we're
mm-hmm.
rather selfish, and our policies are rather selfish. Or if we take a look at social policies of the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, it's partially responsible for the destruction of many families. Republicans, to some extent, have that right because of the way they were implemented, and they were implemented because the way they were implemented were basically to put it, I hate to say this, but to put it bluntly, a lot of times they were racist, the way they were implemented. And when you have policies that are implemented that way, you get bad results. So, I mean, that is the truth.
Well, it is bit of, well, it's not, it's also mixed with misconception.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're because of this, you're because of your lazy, or you're because you're a druggie, you're a drunk, because you're in that spot because of a certain spot. You see what I mean? There's always excuse for it.
Right.
And race is one of them, no doubt. I'm not saying that.
Right.
Too.
Right.
They also made excuse of why people are falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, I mean, they're falling behind. People are falling behind not because they're working less. People are falling behind not because they're not doing what they need to do. People are falling behind because our economic system is not allowing them to move forward. I mean, I had a piece that I did a few weeks ago called Price and Power. That person, that entity that has price and power will always win. As an example, you're talking about wanting minimum wage increase. I'm with that all of the times. So we have the person who increases minimum wage, and after they increase minimum wage, they also increase the amount that you're going to pay for your health care, and they increase the amount that the burger costs. So they still have price and power, so they take back everything that they've given to you. Their bottom line doesn't change, yours do.
Yeah, exactly. And I argue with my friends on the right, and I tell them, listen, in the last 5-6 years, our wages has gone maybe 20-25%. Mm-hmm. I told them the rent and the house payment has gone 70-75%. I said, come on, guys, let's do the math here. We're all people in the middle class is in trouble.
It's an extractive economy, and what we have to start doing is realizing that an economy is man-made, human-made. And when you realize that an economy is human-made, you realize how much you have control over it. When you are also realize that money is controlled by your government, and in the case of America, it is what we call sovereign money, we have the options to do things. We could have everybody working at higher wages right now. We could have the government in competition with the private sector to force the private sector to pay a living wage. We don't even have to dictate to the private sector all of the time. We can create a minimum wage and then create a living wage, and the living wage could be enforced by the government giving everybody who wants a good paying job a job. I bet the private sector would have to start fighting for those workers. There are a lot of policies, but what happens right now is all policy is written for the average rich person, and not for the middle class American, not for the poor American. And once we get there, we'll be okay. Anything else you want to add before we go, my friend?
And I agree with 100% what you said, but let's not forget they went through that 1950s and 60s.
Yes.
With the labor unions.
And you know what?
What did they do? Try to destroy the labor union.
Amen.
Export workers outside.
Man, I think you're a progressive that doesn't want to accept that you're progressive, but that's okay, my brother.
I love both.
You have a wonderful day, sir.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Take care now. Hey, folks, we're getting close to the end. I have about 40 seconds here to tell you one thing. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. Remember, next week, we want to have you here. Next week, we're going to have another great show. We're going to have some topics, some important topics to discuss. You know, this is election time coming around again, and we want to be informed, and we don't want to be informed by those who have agendas. We want to be informed by those who really have whose interest at hand, your interest. We are only owed to you, nobody else. No corporation, no advertiser, nobody. We're owed to you. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.